praise the Lord, guys. I'm Straw Greenhorn. But why beholdest the mote that is in thy brother's eyes, and not the beam that is in thine own? Or how canst thou say to thy brother, Brother, let me remove the mote from thine eye, yet thou perceivest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Thou hypocrite, first remove the beam that is from thine own eye, that thou mightest see clearly to remove the mote from thy brother's. For no corrupt tree bringeth forth good fruit, neither does any good tree bring forth corrupt fruit. For every tree shall be known by its fruit. For men do not gather thorns figs, neither of a bramble bush do they gather grapes. But a good man from the good treasures of his heart bringeth forth that which is good, and the evil man from the evil treasures of his heart bringeth forth that which is evil. For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. So a continuation of these one-liners, and tomorrow will also be the final video about these one-liners. I think we've been like maybe 5 days now, maybe 25 verses of these one-liners that some of them they kind of hit the same point as the previous, if you were to analyze it on principle. But then some of them they take on a different direction. But understand that the issues of life are being addressed here, instead of coming each one case by case and receiving individual answer. Here are answers that you can apply to your case. Because I think that sometimes people they like individual attention, but it's important to understand that are you looking for answers? Are you looking to get somewhere? Do you have a working project going on that you're trying to sort out? And I think that the Bible says, work out your own salvation before him with fear and trembling. So, I think that each person should be building. They should be building something, right? Because otherwise, you don't really have a purpose. These things, they come into your hands and then, they fall out. Give it enough time, you forget completely of the thing that you got. But, the builder, he's able to recognize these blocks. And then, he'll say that, oh, so, this, the empty space that I have, this is what goes there. Right, it means more. It means something different. So in these one-liners, we see different things being addressed. We see the concept of trying to fix others, making it your business to worry about others. Worse when your house is not where it should be. I think that people they think that their job is to preach, point out, and that pointing out others flaws, even though they might be true, that it somehow helps them. Because now they get to say that, well, they told somebody. But did you tell yourself? I think that we have so much great potential, but we take our resources, we take our tools and our block, and we go and we build outside. That's why we have sayings like, it's not green, the grass isn't greener on the other side, right? It's greenest where you water it. Because we have this as human beings. It's just something that happens inside of us where we get used to what we are, right? And we get so used to it that even anything different, we perceive to be better. What whether or not it's better. So it's different that we're looking at because we're so used to ourselves. So instead of taking these things and building us, right, we're so quick to go and build others. Now, let me say that helping others is good. If you have wisdom to help somebody, that's great. But that shouldn't be your sole, purpose and identity. And I think that that's what we see happening, right? And we somehow think that fixing others automatically fixes us. I think that we have a block on us as people, right? Because when we should be taking these things to build ourselves, is that we don't know what to do with it. We end up doing all kind of other things. But the greatest work is to take everything that you've learned, everything you learn from school, every subject. The point of school is to unlock your mind, to make you see things that you couldn't see before. And you walk with this awareness. It brings opinions, it brings judgment. You're able to look at something and say, okay, so this is this, and you're able to describe it and articulate. Look at its strengths and weaknesses, break it apart, see how it works. So, with all this great knowledge that we have, sometimes we just sit on it and do nothing. I think we have this thing that also happens where we'll say that, they're not talking about me, they're talking about someone else. This goes back to, I like to say, we are our parents' children, right? And how your parents loved you and, they gave you praise. I think we think that, we have, no room for improvement. I think, we think that, people just love us as we are, but, we do have a work to do. And point of knowledge is to identify, patterns, good and bad. So, identify the good, isolate those, and further develop them is to identify the bad, address them, fix them, and then make them good. So, a lot of these things are just they're just processes that happen inside of us. The greatest, things can come from observation, because otherwise, you're running in with what you expect. And then you use confirmation bias, which is using all the information that you learn to support what you already believe, even when it might be, it's pointing to something opposite. That's another phenomenon that we have. We see the concept also of, identity, the inward music, the inward dialogue, the inward man, inward color, whether you like it or not. We each have a conscious. If you think about the human heart is never not beating, right? The human heart is not beating, then you need medical attention or you're already dead. Even when you're asleep, when you're happy, you're sad, when you're eating, you're trying to focus on something very important, it's still beating, right? And the same thing with our consciousness. It's always running in the background. Now, I know that people, a lot of us, we have a tendency where, we drift in and out of consciousness, just to make the day go by quicker. Think that, we ignore the music sometimes. We think that it's only in the conscious moments that matter, because these are the times when we have just control of what we do, right? And what we say and think and what we believe and who we are. But then, when these, unconscious moments come and we're just like on autopilot, sometimes for some people, the music can, it can be not so good, right? And we know that when God destroyed the earth by the flood, he said it's because, he looked upon the hearts of men and saw that it was evil continually. So we see, a rather, sharp observation. What you bring forth is what is within you. Now, I think that a pitfall that people can fall into is in their conscious moments, bring forth good. But then in their non-conscious moments, it's nothing but evil. Because the true tone of the heart is darkness, is evil, is gossiping, lying, just, conniving, scheming, looking to bring down, to tear down. The heart, posture is important. And I think that, because we're not, in control of these unconscious things, we think that, it doesn't affect us, or, it can't hold us back. But, the Bible says, get ready, be ye ready, for the Son of Man cometh in a hour that you look at not for him. And getting ready is addressing these unconscious things, right? Because, if you're careful enough, you can begin to take these things one by one. You can begin to, like what he did with the money changers table when they, on the seat of them that sold doves, how he overturned them and kicked them out of the temple. You can begin to take control of these things. But, don't expect it to happen overnight. Don't expect it to have it happen over a short time. I think that awareness is the first thing. So we see also an element that, you can't fool life. You can't, you can fool yourself, but you can't fool God. You can't fool truth. You can't fool truth, right? And even though you might be able to, like I said, during these conscious moments, purposefully put forward good things, but then during the conscious moment, it's all bad things. You think that you get away. We see also an element of, looking close to the thing is not enough. You have enough time. How old are you? How long have you been on this earth? 20 years, 25, 30, 35 years, 40, even, older. For a thing to look close to what it's trying to imitate is not enough. Because, some things they can mimic other things, but, you're just wasting time. And, this goes back to effort, really, because it takes effort to do things. It takes effort to build things. It seems as if the more something is worth is the more effort. Diamonds, right? They like to use that example. The pressure and temperature that it takes, right, to make these. You look at certain cars, they cost so much because, they're given so much more detail. The material, they have the same, 4 8 liter engine, whatever. They run on the same tires. They have the same steering, system. But, the care that's put into it, that we can't give you this for the same price as the other thing. You're gonna have to pay way more for this one. And, sometimes it's easier to just, casually do a thing. But when the time comes to be chosen, that's when you're gonna feel it, right? Because, they say that what luck is preparation and opportunity. Anybody that was ever lucky. Because if either is missing, then you won't. Then you won't get lucky, because the preparation is not there and you get the opportunity, then you're gonna blow it because you're not prepared. You don't know the ins and outs. You don't know what it takes. You haven't walked it enough times that, even if you do mess up, you're so experienced, you can just resort to the whole, mental, structure that you have built, about this thing. You can refer to your own manual, but then, if the opportunity is not there and you have all the preparation, then you're just a very smart guy walking around with your smartness. So it takes both, preparation and opportunity. And like I said, being chosen. So this would more apply to preparation, right? Because you didn't put the time in to create and to use the expensive materials to give it more attention, and not so much the opportunity. And we also see, you can't give what you don't have. You can't give what you don't have, right? You don't put any money in the bank. If you go there to draw, there's not going to be anything in there. And also we see it's not sometimes that you can't give what you don't have, but you have something there, but it's not the thing that is needed, in that moment. It's something else. All right. So how did we get here? Beginning with these one-liners where he just went up to pray in the mountain, then he came down, he picked the 12 disciples, then he looked upon them, and when he beheld the disciples, he said, "Blessed be ye poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are ye which hunger, for ye shall be filled. Blessed are you that weep, for ye shall laugh. Blessed are you when men shall hate you, and separate you from their company, and reproach you, and cast your name out as evil for the Son of Man's sake. Rejoice in that day, and leap for joy, for great is your reward in heaven. For in like manner their fathers did to the prophets. But I say, woe unto you that are rich, for ye have received your consolation. Woe unto you that laugh now, for ye shall weep and mourn. Woe unto you that are filled now, for ye shall hunger. Woe unto you when all men shall speak well of you, for even so their fathers did to the false prophets. But I say unto you which hear, love your neighbors, do good to them that hate you, bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you. And if any man shall smite thee on the one cheek, offer him the other also. If any man shall take away thy cloak, forbid not to take thy coat also. Give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods again, seek them not again. And as you would that men shall do unto you, do you likewise unto them. For if you love those that love you, what thanks have you? For even sinners love those that love them. If you do to those that do to you, what thanks have you? For even sinners do likewise. And if you lend to those of whom you hope to receive again, what thanks have ye? For even sinners lend to other sinners, hoping to receive as much again. But I say unto you, love your enemies, do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return, and great shall be your reward. And ye shall be called the children of the highest. For he is kind to the unthankful and evil. But I say unto you, be ye merciful, even as your heavenly Father is merciful. Judge not, so that ye be not judged. Condemn not, so that ye be not condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. So shall men give into your bosoms. For with whatsoever measurement ye meet, it shall be measured to you again. And he spake a parable forth unto them. Can the blind lead the blind? Shall they not both fall into the ditch? And the disciple is not above his master. But if any man shall be perfect, he shall be as his master. So then we pick up right here, where it says, and why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but perceivest not the beam that is in thine own eye? So now here we have, our observation. Understand that this observation is going to come from somebody that you've been around long enough. You're not going to really see this thing around a stranger, right? Because you don't have an impression of them. You're still trying to figure them out, and get a grasp, for their temperament, their personality, who they are, their value, their status in relation to you. Are they higher than you or lower than you? And I'll say that usually you'll see this thing happening to someone who you think that's lower than you, because usually if somebody is higher than you, you're not gonna be looking to fix them, right? You're gonna be looking for their approval. But not always, this thing it can fall to either side, right? But this is a person that you spent some time enough around, right? Enough to get comfortable, enough to know, out them, enough to put yourself in their shoes, really, because that's what you're doing. So now you've observed them enough, and I think that you're running like a pathway, like a loop in your mind about them. And you're seeing where the train, doesn't stay on the track. You're observing them enough. If you ever had as a child those toy trains where you put them on the track, so how it can run off sometimes. So now you've observed them enough, and you might even get it right. That's even maybe the worst part. You might just get it right, as to why they do a certain thing. Now sometimes this thing, it can be good or bad, authentically good or bad. It can be something that's not useful or something that is, useful. But you perceive it to be, something non-useful, right? And as we can, get from the tone that you have bigger problems. You have bigger problems to worry about. And if you are this person, then you yourself are operating on a bad frequency. So the thing that you're looking at this person, it might not even be something, to look at. Projection also applies here, that we experience the world, by projection. We project who we are onto others. We project our weaknesses onto them. We project our strengths onto them. So now you haven't made this, observation, but you can't see, what's going on inside yourself. And that is ironic because, you spent your whole life with yourself. I would say that these things, they require, like I said, you to start a journey. There's a journey that you have to, take. If you know the hero's journey, I said this before, how they'll start out as nobody. and they'll go through a bunch of setbacks. They'll even be defeated, but then they begin to rise. They begin to take all the broken pieces and put them together and have them mean something, and then they start to really rise and get momentum. So I think a part of this is that we refuse to start our own journey, because this journey, it has certain elements to it, and some of these is not going to be fun. It's not going to be fun to be broken. It's not going to be fun to be isolated, to be left out, to be forgotten. It's not going to be fun to be down and out. When we look at a person with success, we're so quick to say, how did you get it? And in this person's mind, they just want to jump from where they are to where the success is, not knowing that it required all of these elements. We love the finished picture, but we don't love the process. So what behold is the mote that is in their brother's eye. So a mote is way smaller than a beam, right? And it just goes to show that what we have inside ourselves is such great potential. We just don't know how to use it. You'd be surprised how much things that you just don't realize that you do. You'd be surprised how many of your own problems you can solve, but you just never made the decision to start your journey. So now you're looking outward at this person and you're looking past a lot of things, right? But you've gotten so used to these things that you yourself, you don't see it as something. If I were to ask you right now, can you feel your clothes? You've been walking around all day. Have you felt your clothes? You probably have not, right? Now that I told you about it, now you feel them. No. Well, it's the same thing with these problems. And I would make a statement that, have you ever seen somebody wearing something that you like? You were able to see their clothes and like it, right? Have a opinion about it. And even then, you might not have been conscious of what you were wearing. It's the same thing happening, right? Because you're so used to your, clothes being on you. You completely tune it out. So now you're able to see others because you have not been spending the whole day in their clothes. So now you're able to give opinions and even solutions. All right, so the next one says, or how canst thou say to thy brother, brother, let me remove the mote that is in your eye, but yet thou perceivest not the beam that is in thine own. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam from thine own eye, then shalt thou see clear to cast the mote that is from thy brothers. So now, we're doing a physical action right now. We've, like I said, observed it. We've spent some time with it. We've seen how it loops around the track, where the train falls out, which track needs to be fixed, how to address it, and all these things. So now we're putting action into motion. So, I would say the reason why we are able to do this, because it doesn't require us to be on our journey, right? And plus, it's a distraction, from all the noise that we are ignoring. Because now you can go and do this. Because the thing about your journey is that it's continuous, right? I mean, you can take, breaks and rest. You can put it down and pick it back up. But it takes focus. It takes energy. It takes action. It takes time. It takes care, I think. It takes so many things. But this, you can just easily go and do this and then let it go. It's like wanting to stay into quietness, inaction, to stay in inaction, doing nothing. So now here you go to do this. I know you don't have to be committed to it, right? You can just go and do a couple things here and there and then go right back to being in action. So how can you say unto thy brother, brother, let me remove the mote from his that is from thine eye, when thou perceivest not the beam that is in thine own. So now here we have an observation. Here somebody is observing you just as much as you are observing this person. Now they get to form an impression of you. Thou hypocrite. Thou hypocrite. Why? Because, what you're doing right now is that you're sending this person on their journey, whether or not they are on their journey already. But for this to be addressed, as the problem that you see it as, they have to go on their journey. So thou hypocrite, you want them to go on their journey while you don't want to go on yours. So thou hypocrite, first remove the beam that is from thine own eye. Then you shall see clear. Go on your journey. Do the work. You haven't done the work. I guarantee you're going to be a different person when you finish the work. You're going to have different answers, different thought patterns, different thought processes. You're going to have a whole new point of view. This might not even be a problem when you go on your journey and you come back. You might even see that, this was right the whole time. It was me. I was so far off that I saw this as a problem. That's how far off I was. Or it might just well be a problem, each case will be different, right? So first cast the beam out of thine own eye. Then thou shalt see clear. Because, if you are having this heart and mindset, then, there's probably things that's going on inside you that's holding you back. There's things that are there that's cluttering the place. You're tripping over things as you walk. So first develop thyself. Then you'll be able to give better counsel, better advice. You'll be able to see things better. Because you can't lead anybody that you are not. You might just lead this person somewhere bad. So first cast the beam out, then you shall see clearly. Like I said, when you get there, you might just see that, they were right the whole time. That's one possibility. So the next one says, for a good tree bringeth not forth corrupt fruit, neither doth a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. So now here we have, the concept of something continuous. The tree being good or corrupt, that's continuous. That's not a in the moment feeling, when you feel inspired. Maybe you just saw somebody or something. Now you're inspired. Maybe you are around somebody that, in their presence you have to be a certain way. But no, this is, I said, the heartbeat. The heart is always beating. So this thing is always running in the background. It's always there. And I guess for some people, we don't understand that we can change this to whatever, we want. Understanding, self-development, self-help, broadening your mind, taking the time out to learn certain things, being aware, unlocking your mind. So we understand that being good, being correct as a state. Now you might consciously be able to override it by your will, at given points of the day, but then it goes right back there. So the good tree bringeth not forth, corrupt fruit. Job comes to mind here when the Bible described him, one that feareth God. He escheweth evil. So Job, being the good tree that bringeth not forth corrupt fruit, is that he escheweth. That means if it were to arise, from himself, he would be able to identify it and stamp it out. If it wasn't somebody else, he was able to stamp it out. No matter where it came from. So I think that, in reality, it's not that you are unable to bring forth, these corrupt things, but that you can identify it and you can disown it, right? And this word good, you have to understand what it really means, because some people would say that they are good when they're really not. They think that they're good because human psychology says that we don't ever look at ourselves as being, disfavored. We always give our own self favor, and some things about you might not be so good, but you're not gonna see it as that. So the good tree, now you have to understand, this is a mature tree, right? Some people, their tendencies, just who they are, they've been blessed. They were born with a good heart. They do good things. They think good towards people. It might have been how their parents treated them, how they grew up. It was something that they came here with. But then, for others, they developed this. So this good tree, in the presence of these corrupt things, it senses difference. It senses that, I am me and I am not these things. Even though they might be around me and, trying to come to to my presence, I know who I am, right? I can see these things or can't take root inside me. But then on the corrupt tree, bring it not for good fruit. Entropy, I spoke of entropy already, how everything tends to disorder. That's why you have to clean your house. That's why you have to wash your clothes. And you have to organize your books. You have to organize your life, because if not, then everything gets to disorder. And I think that, evil, life, I think, that life tends to evil. Ever since the Garden of Eden, life tends to evil. It's like a dam, how they hold water back. It's like you have to actively create the dam to contain this water because it's going to go everywhere. So life, I would say, tends to evil. Because if you leave everything and you do nothing, more than likely, it's going to be evil that arises. Evil doesn't need, any help coming on the scene. So, if a person is operating inside this, can you see how easy it is for them to continue on how hard it is to bring forth good? Because now good, you have to contain this dam. And the force of the water is going to be hard to work against. All right, so the next one says, for every tree is known by its fruit. Neither do men gather of thorns figs, neither of a bramble bush do they gather grapes. So, every man being known by his own fruit. So now it's looking upon a person and, you're going to know what kind of person they are, right? I mean, the people around you, you can describe them. You can say, well, Tom, he's happy. He's always the one that's, all over the place, telling everybody good morning and asking how their day went and how's everything. And you're not gonna know that, this other guy, he's the angry one, right? And he's not really friendly. You can't say nothing to him. Then you're gonna know that this other one, they're the malicious one. They're always the one looking to step on people. So a man is known. This thing is not in the moment or situational thing. It's a observation over a longer time period, and you can't fake that, right? Because as much as you try, you're gonna let it's gonna slip. So neither do men gather of thorns grapes or bramble bush figs. And to me, I'm picturing similarity, something that is mimicking something else, but it can't be chosen because it's not the real authentic thing. Because I'm seeing similarity of how thorns, how they grow off something just like how figs would, but then the bramble bush is like how grapes would be. So they kind of look like each other. When Jesus was hungry and he came to the fig tree and he found none, what did he do? He cursed it, right? So you have to put the time in to be something, because it takes time and energy, effort to form this thing. Because if not, you're gonna make something that's useless, and you're just gonna waste your whole time. So it's better that for you to do nothing than to give it such a so kind of half effort. That's why he said to the church of Laodicea, I would that you were hot or cold, because you're just wasting your time. Because if you do something with half the effort, you're gonna make something that is gonna be useless. Because when you come looking for figs and you see thorns, I mean that's such Jesus, he cursed the tree, right? The bramble bush. You're looking for grapes and you see that. So it looks like it, but it's no good, because it takes more effort to form figs. It takes more effort to form grapes. I spoke earlier about luck, preparation, and opportunity. So the opportunity is that you're being viewed. That's the opportunity. What's wrong is the preparation. You didn't put the time in to make the figs. You didn't put the time in to make the grapes. All right, so the last one says, and the good man from the good treasures of his heart bringing forth that which is good, and the evil man from the evil treasures of his heart bringing forth that which is evil. For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaketh. So who we are, that will eventually come through, because observation over a longer period of time. You ever seen somebody go like on a vacation, and when they came back they were so happy, but then as time went by they went back to who they were. So there's a music that's playing in the background all times of who you really are. And you would serve yourself better to understand this music and make sure that it's singing what you want it to sing, than to try and fake it or try to convince others of that you're something that you're not. For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speak it. For the music is gonna shout itself through you. It's gonna come through your skin, your head, your eyes, your face. Is gonna come through your legs. You're gonna wear this. I'm Straw Greenhorn.